so I'm excited to dive in with Rosa Vasquez Espinoza, telling us a little bit about the story of these incredible creatures and their incredible honey. We're going to stick in that Amazon basin. And so, Rosa, thank you so much for joining us today. Welcome into the Global BioFest.
Thank you so much, Jesse. Thank you so much, you guys, for putting this together. I just literally was moved to tears with Leo. He is incredible, and it just so inspired me for me to see other people so passionate about studying and just like reconnecting with the wild in our jungle, and then bringing a little bit back to that with everyone else, So thank you so much for having me.
Thank you for being here. Move to tears. That could be like our slogan for the festival. We'll say, hey, even the speakers are obsessed with the other speakers. Rosa, I'm so excited to dive in. I'd love to see your presentation and do a big Q&A at the end. So if you want to dive us into your amazing fieldwork, let's check it out together.
Let's go for it. Let me go ahead and share my screen. Let me know if you can see it.
And we are almost up. Beautiful.
All good?
Look at that. It's gorgeous. I'm excited.
Perfect. Thank you. Thank you so much again to everyone, all of the organizers, for bringing me in all this incredible array of speakers. My name is Rosa. I'm originally from Peru, and I work with the micro world of the Amazon, from microscopic organisms to tiny beings like Amazonian stingless bees. And today I'll be sharing about a new project that I'm starting to work together with my organization, as well as the Institute of Investigation of the Peruvian Amazon, IAP, which is a group that do incredible work all around the Peruvian Amazon. But before I get started, I'll just tell you a little bit more about me. I got interested in all of the concept that is traditional medicine in the Andes and in the Amazon, thanks to my family and just this strong connection that we've always had to relying on nature to provide us medicines, which to me, it was always mind-blowing. And the more I learned about science and genetics and chemistry, I just couldn't understand how powerful nature is, that it can provide us with all of these chemistry. So then I set myself on a journey to really try to unravel all of this information. And I was shocked to learn how little we knew about the microscopic and micro world of the Amazon in general, compared to other forms of being, more macro forms of being. And even considering that we're in a time in the world where we can easily go to space, but yet we don't know what's below our feet, really shocked me. So inspired with all of this traditional medicine, I continued my studies in the US, where I recently completed my PhD in chemical biology. I'm an agile explorer, but I'm also an artist. And that's why people like Leo inspire me so much, because I think we need more science integrated with the arts, so that we can not only communicate it more effectively, but we can really translate our passions into other people. I work with a few different projects. Another one is the boiling river of the Peruvian Amazon, in collaboration with incredible geologist Andres Russo, which is work that will be coming out later this year, so stay tuned for that. But today I'll talk to you about a project that is now dear to my heart, which is Amazonian stingless bees. So I don't know if you guys have ever heard of stingless bees. They are native to tropical areas around the world. You can actually even find them in the US, although they're not native here, but I have found them in California, that they can feed on the flower of poison ivy and make poisonous honey, but that's another story. Native bees in the Amazon have been used by traditional communities for a very long time. I have found reports that explain that the traditional communities had access not only to this honey, but to this knowledge even before the Spaniards came to conquer South America, which is a very long time. And not only did they know that the honey can serve as medicinal, but they also knew what native species of these stingless bees, what kind of honey they make, and they can serve for a certain disease, and another species can make honey that can serve for a different disease. And to me, that's a concept that just blew my mind, from not only the cultural and traditional medicine perspective, but also what's happening in this ecosystem, that honey can be such a powerful medicine. but also the fact that there are reports that honey can be poisonous, which is actually something I wasn't, as a chemical biologist, familiarized with until last year. But like I mentioned, the ones in California, for example, have been reported to make poisonous honey, but this happens all around even Africa and other tropical environments. So for this project, I'm working in the north part of the Peruvian Amazon, a region called Iquitos, where maybe 10 or 20 years ago, there were reports that explained that we had about maximum 50 species of these native stingless bees, that, as the name suggests, they do not sting. They may bite if they feel threatened, but they won't sting. However, now with more studies and more explorations, the current estimation is that we have over 800 native species in a single region in the northern part of the Amazon. That's not even considering the rest of central and southern part of the Amazon. And also the fact that these are not only endemic to the Amazon, but that there are also Andean stingless bees, which I think we know even less about. So their honey, like I mentioned, has been using for a very long time as a strong, powerful medicine for multiple purposes that I'll explain in a second. Also as a food source, of course. Also, it has played an important role, not only the honey, but the bees themselves in religion and culture. A lot of the communities that I've started to work with for this project, they integrate the beekeeping practices within their own family, and children, since they are very little, learn about these practices and the way that this works. And for me, it was really powerful to hear some of the local leaders explain that they learn so much more about the world through the bees, more than what we could imagine, especially on the cultural and social aspect, which is that by observing their interactions and their behaviors and having to cohabit with them, they aim to live their lives as bees in group, where everybody has a role and everybody supports each other and everybody plays as a strong team. And to me, that's really powerful, because then it really shows us how integrated nature is in a lot of these cultures. And this is something that is important to take into consideration when we talk about preserving species like this one. Also, something that happened during the pandemic was that, as we know, most of the world shut down, but there wasn't that much, in my opinion, communication on the fact that how this impacted the Amazonia and the communities that live so far away from any bigger city, where you may need to be on a boat in the river for hours and hours on end. And so by shutting down tourism, their main source of income shut down, and a lot of the economic relief that the local governments were providing were going into bank accounts, which a lot of the communities don't even have a bank account set up. So then what do you do to bring food to the table? And actually, a lot of the communities resorted back to the honey, and they started to sell this honey in local markets, and it became an important sustainable form of income, which continues to this day. And I found that that's important to highlight, because that goes hand in hand with their increased incentive to be able to protect this. So the medicinal honey is used for a variety of different diseases, upper respiratory infections, gastrointestinal illnesses. It can heal, they claim that it can heal wounds as well as skin conditions. And there are ethnobotanical reports that claim also that communities use them to treat diabetes and cancer. And a lot of this ethnobotanical recollection of important information has been carried out by my local colleague, Cesar Delgado Vasquez, an incredible researcher that works closely with the communities and that we're now collaborating. And the first question that really came to my mind was, what contributes to these medicinal properties? And many hypotheses came to the table when I was talking about this with my local colleagues, which is some of their reports, which are going to be published within the next few months, have dedicated to study what type of flowers and trees these bees feed on, because these bees have the capacity to actually be able to feed on up to 30 or over 30 different flowers and plants, which is a large variety. And when we think about a bee feeding on a specific flower, then we also have to consider that with a link to pollination. So then now the bees are helping pollinate a large variety of native and important flowers, many of them that are related to also medicinal purposes, such as the one in the photo here behind is called achote, or sangre de grado, the dragon blood tree. And so they don't discriminate. They don't only feed on one or another, like a lot of the beings that do sting around in the world, like the Apis mellifera, that are more native to, that they came from Europe and Africa, and that we're all more familiarized with, do. And reports from this institution have actually obtain an actual value on how much native bees can help increase reforestation in agricultural crops, and that is 44%. Whenever you keep native stingless bees in the Amazon in a specific region, you can increase the agricultural crops of that area up to 44%. There's many reports actually from incredible scientists in Brazil that show that native stingless bees are more effective at pollinating their local flora than when you bring European or African bees from outside to inside, which tends to be the practice right now in industry and agriculture. So I think that was an important thing to highlight. Another thing that we hypothesized could contribute to these medicinal properties, it's the microbiome, the micro world. What kind of microbes exist inside the bee, in the saliva, around it, and also not just on the bee, but on the beehive. The beehive, there are different layers to it. And then another one is the ecosystem and the surrounding environments. It is well known from other studies that whenever we have increased temperature, or for example, increased levels of contamination, the genetics of a person or animals can change because some genes activate or deactivate as a response to do that, to be able to handle these changes. And then that causes what we know as a cascade reaction, which now one gene activated or deactivated, and now you're having multiple reactions, multiple effects in your own body. So this is something also important to consider. So what should we be studying? On one aspect, and what I'll talk about a little bit more about today, it's the chemistry of the honey, but also the chemistry of the flora. What are the molecules that are present in the honey and the plants around where the environments where these bees live, and are any of these associated with medicinal value? What are the genetics and the microbiome of the bees and the beehive? And we should continue monitoring changes in their local environments, which is all of this work really needs to be tied in together. And from previous reports, it was shown that native stingless bees tend to have a higher abundance of medicinal molecules compared to the European African bee, the one that we're familiarized with, that we know as Apis mellifera. And some of the molecules that have been identified, some of the ones shown here: polyphenols, flavonoids, antioxidants, that are linked to having positive medicinal properties whenever they are consumed. But this study had not been fully done in Amazonian stingless bees from this region yet, which is what we have started, and we are hoping to put this work out there in our first publication shortly, but then taking it really farther and expanding our work. So what we did is we took two specific species of bees that the communities tend to grow because they claim that their honey is the most potent medicine. And we took multiple samples from these bees and we compared their chemical profiles, which is we look at what are the molecules that could be present here and compare that against a library of molecules that we know already have been characterized. And as you can see here, the most important takeaway from that, because I cannot reveal that much yet, it's the difference in the shades of blue and the difference in the shades of green. So all the blue refer to one species and all the green refer to a different bee species. And as you can see, some of these, some are common between the different species, and each bar refers to one molecule. However, most of these are unique. That means that the molecules that are found in the honey from one species are different and unique from the ones found in the honey from a different species, which really, I think, supports the traditional knowledge that we are reporting and collecting from the communities as well, because then that would signify that honey A, for example, is going to have properties to cure or to help aid whatever condition, while honey B will aid in providing relief for a different type of condition. And right now I'm only showing a little bit very generic, but we've actually found not only tens of molecules in each of these honey samples, but hundreds. It's a large number of unique molecules that we have found with a variety of different properties. Right now I'm only referring to the most abundant that had different medicinal properties, but we have found a lot of interesting uniqueness within this. and we're excited to take this further. Now, what I do want to also highlight is that we have initiated this project as in a slightly different way from other research projects that I've done before, which makes me really excited because we aim to integrate art in science. We believe that this is the best way to communicate the work that we are doing. And so we partner with an incredible artist, Annelise Sotelo from Peru, so that we can create a science communication campaign highlighting the work that has been done by local researchers already, like Cesar Delgado on my left, but also highlight what we are looking to study with the goal not only to share the news that, hey, we have a lot of native stingless bees and they are helping so much with reforestation right now. We need to study them even more, and we need more local people doing this local work. So to do that, we capture a lot of like high quality media and videos, and we recently got an article in the Nat Geo magazine digital in Spanish and English, because I think it's important to have the bilingual information, as well as different clips that we capture to show that they are indeed stingless bees. So I was not hurt in the making of these videos, nor any of these species were hurt in the making of them. And also something important to highlight is I've only talked about the honey, but the pollen is actually a very important component in the traditional medicine used in these communities as well, and it shall be studied at some point. We also aim to highlight the communities that are leading this work. This is Heriberto, who is one of the local leaders and actually extremely knowledgeable, not only on what we know as the more modern meliponiculture that refers to this culture of keeping Amazonian native stingless bees, but he's also very familiarized with the wild techniques. How did communities for a very long time were finding these beehives and obtaining the honey? They would go actually at night because they could hear them better, identify the tree where the beehive was at, and then coming back the next morning to collect the beehive or chop down the tree so that they could access it. And then in order to be able to obtain the honey, they would take the honey bee pods and then squeeze them out. And of course, during this process, it can be quite disruptive for the beehive, because if you end up destroying the little bee pods, the honey pods, sorry, it takes a very long time for the bees to be able to make their beehive again. So they tend to move to another space. And so that's really disruptive of the ecosystem. So what our local colleagues have been doing for many years, and now they're trying to really spread this more technological approach, is they studied the sizes of the beehives and created a very easy to make wood based box that basically tries to mimic the beehive. And now a beehive can be placed in there, and they can be kept in the backyard of the local families, so they can facilitate not only a more sustainable beekeeping practice, but also they are being taught how to extract the honey without destroying the bee pods in the process, so then they can produce more honey and then have more of an incentive to be able to maintain these beautiful species. We also wanted to highlight some of the important medicinal fruits and plants and trees that these bees feed on. Like here on the left, we have sangre de grado, the dragon's blood, known as the tree that bleeds when you cut it. And we also did, like I mentioned, we wanted to highlight the fact that they are stingless with these different videos, where I volunteer to put my face in them, just as a way to, again, bring back the fact that nature, it is so close to us and we belong to it, and we all belong really together. And we want to not create a barrier, but instead create a bridge and just bring people closer to the work that we do and to the Amazon in general. So with that, thank you so much. We are excited to bring this work out to the public very soon. So you can follow me in social media as well as in my website, and always can reach me out by email. Thank you so much.
Rosa, or Dr. Espinoza, as I should have said from the get-go. I need to throw professional detachment out the window for a minute. That was an amazing presentation. Such science, honestly, one of the big things that our audience has really picked up on when people talk about it is science and art blending together. And you do that so beautifully. You highlighted it in the program. And I also encourage our audience to check out your website, because there you talk about a lot of the dance work that you do as well. And I think that people that have an artistic mindset, that have that backdrop, really, it blends into their science in such a beautiful way that makes it shine just that much brighter. So I'm really glad we got the chance to highlight that today, and thank you so much for that.
Thank you so much. It's very kind. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Well, you were a huge fan of Leo just before he left the broadcast. Well, he stuck around on YouTube for your program, and so he wants to know, how did you choose which stingless bees to analyze, since there's so many species you could have picked from in the local communities?
Yes, there are so many. So right now there's mostly 10 species that the communities have been growing naturally or keeping naturally, because they tend to prefer them, not only because they are the least aggressive and they do not sting, but like I had mentioned, some of them can bite if they feel threatened. So they are the most safe to keep around their families and their children, but also because they claim they make their most potent medicinal honey. But there hasn't been really any chemical and genetic data to back this up, which is, I think it's important to share the work that we're doing with them as well, so then they can use it for their own purposes. So we selected, out of these many species that they're growing, we selected the two that were more amenable to work with during the day, because we were doing a lot of these shootings as well. And the ones that appear in all of the videos that we did are the Eburnea species. They were really so docile, but also those two specific honey samples were the ones that they as a family consume the most. So we thought that that would be an important place to start, but there's so much more to do.
Yeah. Well, on the note of so much more to do, I mean, this is a question we've asked a lot of our speakers over the BioFest, but I mean, you seem like you get bored very easily. Like, you seem like you need to do 27 things at a time because you've got so much in your mind going on. Is there something you want to do next? Is there a place you'd like to visit? Is it just doubling down on the work you're doing with communities presently, or would you like to continue this work in other places across South America or the world?
I appreciate it. I cannot stand still. I will accept that. I would love to really bring all of this work to completion. So we are right now cooking the final product and publication, and a map that is going to come along with it for the Boiling River. So we are in full steam ahead on that. And then the next thing will be to really nail down all of these bee work. There's a lot of incredible local scientists that are doing different parts of the work. Some studying the pollen, some studying the changes in the environment. So I think we really need to hone on that. But I would say the thing that I'm now, as I move into an independent career after my studies, it's to bring more artists into the work. So now I'm working closely with Anna, but we're gonna bring even like sound artists and just more of this art world to communicate and to do not only communicate it, but actually be integrated in the process. I think it's also important.
Yeah. Last year there was we had the Norwegian Symphony Orchestra do this beautiful setup where they had people out in wild places in sort of these incredible landscapes in Norway and around the world doing orchestral pieces associated with the idea of fighting climate change and saving biodiversity. It's one of the most beautiful, touching things that we did. So, hey, reach out to Joe at the end of the thing, and if we need to put you in touch.
Yeah, please. I would love to see that work. Send me a link. Wow.
Any opportunity to do cool stuff with art and music is just so special. Anyway, Leo continues to be your biggest fan, by the way. I just honestly, I love the speakers sticking around for being each other's fanboys, fangirls for these incredible programs. Conservation, such a team effort. I think your work epitomizes that so well. Rosa, what a beautiful story. With the honey, so with the things that the bees are producing, you talked earlier in your program about ethnobotany and this idea of these medicines that are so impactful. I mean, that's the essence of the talk. This is something that has become increasingly a justification for preserving biodiversity. And I think as people involved in biology, as people who get the chance to interact with these species, we all recognize the inherent value of this life. But can you speak to how people have responded when you say, look, here are tools and techniques and medicines that have existed for thousands of years that we're missing out on if we cut the forest, if we get rid of these species? I'd love to hear your thoughts.
So yeah, two things to that. The first one, I would say, I feel like people that have never perhaps been to the Amazon or feel more distant to it for one way or the other will care more, or at least listen more closely if you bring it back to something that matters to them. I have found, of course, medicine is such a common topic all around the world, and I feel like whenever we show that added scientific value, we can really strengthen any conservation policies, because then all of a sudden it matters for perhaps the development of new heart medicines for your grandpa or yourself. So then all of a sudden it feels real and it feels tangible and palpable, and I think that's part of the work that I want to do. And two, I feel like ethnobotany has focused for a long time in documenting the use of medicinal plants, mostly around the world. Of course, medicinal insects has been a part of that, but it's been more of a focus on plants. And I feel like that's important. But a lot of the work with animals and insects have not been highlighted and documented, like the Amazonian stingless bees. Why did that go unnoticed for such a long time? That it just blows my mind. And I feel like when we associate all of that to the microscopic world, then if by any chance there is something useful that is found, then and it can be traced back to a microbe, now you can access it in a sustainable way without having to kill any animal, without having to cut any tree or chop down any plant. And I think that's the beauty of always looking at the micro world of everything that we do, because there is a sustainable way to be able to use that information to preserve it better, to conserve it better, but also to have meaningful, uses for our civilization.
Rosa, I'm so in. I've been so struck this year more than our other 2 years of the Global Biofest, how skilled some of our speakers have been in communicating the work they do so passionately. And again, I know you've been lauded and had the chance to work with so many amazing organizations, but it's still a testament to your enthusiasm and backdrop in this. I just, what a fantastic presentation. Again, you were kind enough to put your email on that last slide. I hope you get inundated with messages from fascinated people around the globe. But if people do want to check you out, you're on social media, rosa@espinoza.com. I hope everyone takes that chance. It's a beautiful site talking about the education, research work, and more that you've been up to. So kudos to you. Thanks for being a part of our Global Biofest. This has been so special.
Thank you so much for having me. Thank you so much, everyone watching. Thank you. We stay in touch.